Hi, my name is Daryle Lamont Jenkins. I am the executive director of the Philadelphia-based anti-fascist group One People's Project.
Daryle, nice to meet you.
Same here.
We're here talking about Alt-Right's Age of Rage,
Yes.
the documentary, and I just wanted you to kind of start with walking me back to when Adam first approached you on doing this documentary and what was running through your head.
Well, there was a lot of people trying to figure out what is Antifa and all that, and there was a lot of people also trying to find out what was the alt-right, the so-called alt-right. And because my organization, One People's Project, has been basically keeping tabs on these individuals for the past 18 years, we became the go-to resource for that. And they were originally looking to do a documentary simply about Trump's first year and the reaction to that first year. When they approached me and other anti-fascists, they started to get a little bit more out of it. And they started realizing that this is something bigger than Trump. And it needed to be addressed. And that's why we're talking, instead of Trump's first year, we're talking about an age of rage that basically has been fueled by whatever it is the so-called alt-right has been about.
Okay. And you know, what moments in the ongoing clash between Antifa and the alt-right kind of tipped it over for you and thought, you know, this is the time to make a documentary, to get my word out there?
You know, I've always felt that way to begin with. It was just frustrating. I don't think it was so much about me saying that it was time to start addressing this. I think it was society in general that finally came to terms with the fact that, yeah, we got to do something. And that happened the minute that Hillary Clinton, during the campaign, brought up the so-called alt-right. And I say so-called because I don't like using their terms, and there really isn't an alternative, because this is what I see the right as anyway. But it was just simply a matter of everyone else coming to terms with what we've been trying to tell people we needed to do for years. It just basically came to fruition, and it's unfortunate that we had to wait until it did.
And I mean, you said you don't like using terms like alt-right. That's obviously, do you see it as just a branding exercise?
Absolutely. I mean, if you had seen how they were operating over the past 10 years or so, they went from, obviously they don't want to call themselves white supremacists or neo-Nazis or Klan, so they'll give themselves cute names such as race realists or white nationalists they'll go with, or they'll say race realists, or they'll call themselves identitarian. And finally they latched on to alt-right. And I will tell you that after Charlottesville, there was a gentleman within the white power scene who was upset because things had devolved the way they did in Charlottesville. And he was particularly upset because, in his words, the term alt-right was supposed to be a do-over for us. So yes, it was definitely rebranding.
Okay. So you've obviously known this guy Richard Spencer for a while.
For a good while, about 10 years or so, 11.
And I mean, when you signed on to do this documentary, did you know that he was going to be a part of it?
Yeah, I did, but I think it was more than just knowing that he was going to be a part of it. Other individuals out there like Nathan Domingo or Matthew Heimbach, I figure, would also be a part of it as well. You're not going to be able to talk about those individuals without them being involved somehow. So, yeah, I knew that. But what I knew I had to do was make sure that we defined ourselves and defined them. Because we didn't want this to become like all the other documentaries that we have seen over the past 30 years, where they would talk about the neo-Nazis and such and give short shrift to those that were basically fighting them. I don't want to be a part of that, and I really get annoyed when I see those particular documentaries where they just focus on the neo-Nazis and basically just giving them publicity and advertisement. And this isn't that. You don't come away from this documentary thinking, oh yeah, I want to join Richard Spencer. And if you do, there's just something wrong with you. That's just the bottom line. And that's the kind of thing I need to be a part of, that anti-fascists all over the country would rather be a part of. And I'm glad I am.
Okay. And
Excuse me.
there are some people out there who take issue with giving the alt-right a platform to speak. What's your position on that?
It's not so much an issue with giving them a platform to speak so much as it is giving them a platform without countering it. And that's whenever I hear people come after me or others saying that we're violating their freedom of speech. No, we have not. We're just using ours. Mm-hmm. We're just saying, hey, this is why they're wrong. This is why they're a problem. And this is why you have to reject them. And insofar, I know somebody's probably going to bring up the fact that they keep getting shut down on college campuses. I will always turn that back on them, because it's funny that there's one particular group out of a college in California that brought one of these hate mongers to campus in the name of freedom of speech. But also in the name of freedom of speech, they are calling for a college professor to resign because he started an anti-fascist club. And as far as they're concerned, anti-fascists are not about free speech, so he shouldn't be there. So this is what we have to try to get across to people who try to get away with the nonsense that somehow we're violating their freedom of speech. No, we're trying to preserve ours and everyone else's. They're not going to do that. You don't have to defend the indefensible in order to preserve free speech. You know, sometimes you can defend those who are fighting the indefensible.
And I guess social media plays a huge role in
Mm-hmm.
both sides of this. It allows the, I guess, one of your biggest mechanisms, which is doxing.
Right.
And it also benefits the rioters in it, lets them get their word out there and recruit people. How do you see the developments of social media up until now? How do you see them affecting the future of this?
Well, the pro and cons to it is this. Well, let's start with the con. The con is a lot of things go unfiltered from their side, and because you do have a lot of money that goes through them. I mean, Richard Spencer's a millionaire. You tend to see it propagated a lot faster, and unfortunately, that has caused a little bit of upheaval here and there. I mean, hell, we got a president because of all that nonsense. They got a president because of that nonsense. On the other hand, the pro to it is that it's not sustaining. When we start using social media, when we start making it work for us, then anything that they're doing just falls short, because the one thing that they benefit from the most when it comes to their memes, when it comes to their propaganda, I should say, is when it's not countered. Once it's countered, it's over. And they have to move on to the next thing, and that's what they always do.
Okay. And there is a quote from someone in the documentary, the lady that offered you the church to stay in, that it's a reflection of the current political climate that you just kind of have to take sides. Do you think it's reached the point where people are obliged to decide on where they stand? Yes, I do.
I mean, more so now than ever before, because if you really do believe in what the society is supposed to provide and what it is we're supposed to be about, then yeah, you have an obligation now, because we dropped the ball. We really did drop the ball. We really should have been on top of all of this long before Trump even got the nomination. And the fact that he got the nomination should have been a wake-up call that you can't keep screwing around. Unfortunately, people screwed around, and this is why we're where we are today. Now, we are not lost. We can reverse all of this, and I will tell you that once we do, don't fall asleep on it again. You just got a wake-up call that it just takes only a minute for everything that we have worked for the past 50, I can't say 200, but 50 years, 60 years, to just fall completely apart. Everything that we've always believed in, everything that we've always fought for, could just die just like that. And we just got to be careful. This is the warning.
And speaking of warnings, what do you think are the main takeaway points from what happened in Virginia?
You know, it's sad because one of the things I keep telling people is that we actually saw what happened in Virginia before, about 16 years ago. It was in York, Pennsylvania, similar kind of situation where a white supremacist wanted to hold a public meeting in the local library, and all the neo-Nazis came out and all the anti-fascists came out and all hell broke loose, up to and including somebody driving their car into a group of people. Luckily, nobody died that year. So it wasn't anything new, but we also knew that whatever was going to happen in Charlottesville was going to be, as we put it in a podcast just a couple of days before, their ultima. I mean, it will be the end of their era, or beginning of the end of their era, because everybody will see them for who they are. And that's exactly what we did. That's exactly what happened. I did not expect somebody to die like that, as I said in the film, but I knew somebody was going to get hurt and killed as they built themselves up. And now it's just a matter of us asking ourselves, what are we going to do about it, and how are we going to keep this from happening again? Free speech, you know, if you're going to defend free speech, you better defend it to protect yourself as well as to defend the bad guy.
And it's briefly touched on in the documentary. Richard Spencer occupies a very, very extreme position in the right, extreme right. What's your view on just the right?
We can say that he represents a very extreme position on the right, but unchecked, that extreme becomes mainstream, as we're seeing now. There's a lot of people who know how to keep their mouth shut. There's a lot of people that my organization have not exposed. And they have those same extreme views, but they are able to go forward in their careers, whether it's in politics, whether it's in academia, whether it's in law enforcement. We've had more than enough problems with law enforcement in this regard. Don't take anything for granted is what I would probably tell people. You have got to be vigilant against all of this. Don't just assume that Richard Spencer represents the extreme and he's not going to hurt anybody. He's probably not going to hurt anybody now, but he can build some people who can.
And, you know, wrapping up, where do you see this year leading for the clash between the alt-right and Antifa? They're
going to fall like a deck of cards. They are. We don't want this. We never wanted it before. We don't want it now. And now there are more people who have stepped up to the plate, and they're taking swings. So enjoy it. The alt-right can either enjoy it while they can and suffer the consequences later, or they can get out of it and actually come back to the human race. But the bottom line is they're not long for this world.